And in first place, Ian McIntosh.
When I was a teenager, I really wanted to be a ski guide. I was also super passionate about skiing all the time, so I went to New Zealand one summer, met a bunch of guys that were pros in Canada at the time, got convinced like, hey, move out to Whistler. You don't need to be a guide for a living, you could just ski for a living. I started doing more ski comps and built a name for myself, getting really good results on the contest circuit. Started to want to be able to break out of competing and get into the film world. I wanted to either make a living out of it or move on. I looked at TGR as like, a company where I really would fit in well. They're really big mountain focused. I got the call to, hey, come on down to Jackson and we'll see if you can hang. At that point, I was pretty young and super hungry. And I was like, okay, here's my big chance. This is make or break. Huge learning experience for me right off the bat. I'll never forget the very first line I tried to ski was a double on breakneck. Almost ended my season right on the very first shot. Throughout the rest of the winter, I pulled back a little bit and then slowly built back up to eventually returning to a variation of that double on breakneck and stomped it clean. Spent a lot of days just like walking around in the backcountry around Jackson, just trying to find these lines that were different than what I had seen in the past. And I wanted to find lines that really embodied who I was. Those lines that are more, I guess, aggressive, a little bit more high consequence. After 3 months in Jackson, TGR crew was like, okay, we have an open seat in Alaska. Who's the best guy for that position? And they kind of looked to me as this big mountain skier. Here I am, first year with TGR. I get to go to AK. The boys just said, all right, we'll meet you in Haines. Be here on this day. And I was like, okay, well, how the heck do I get to Haines? I ended up renting a car and drove to Haines. And I pulled into Haines and all the boys were like, you drove here from Whitehorse? What are you doing, man? And I was like, I don't know. How'd you guys get here? One of those things that touches on like how green I was at the time. That was a really tough year in Haines. It happened to be a really horrible avalanche cycle. It was, a pretty crazy introduction for me to go to Alaska in those conditions. I did what I could with that trip, learned a lot. From there, it's only gotten easier. Getting out into that environment with those particular people ultimately, I guess, set the course for my future.